Good morning a bit to Dr. Sama and my fellow classmates. Today we are the second group for the presentation. My name is Alicia and these are my group members. So our presentation topic for today is to discuss on the 3 characteristics of a good assessment and to list down 2 difficulties faced by inexperienced teachers in integrating assessment in teaching and learning, as well as to describe how to address the difficulties. So before we dive in deeper on what are the characteristics of a good assessment, we need to know what is the meaning of an assessment. What is an assessment? Basically, an assessment is a measurement process that can be either a formative assessment or a summative assessment. For a formative assessment, it is used oftentimes to support learning, whereas for summative assessment, it is used to establish on whether the student had learned enough. Today we're going to look at this as a summative assessment, which is often done at the end of a course. A summative assessment is used to determine whether at the end of the day the students know or understand what they are learning, what the teachers are teaching, and whether they have enough knowledge to progress into the next stage of their career. What is the characteristics of a good assessment? First and foremost, you need to address these 2 questions. First, how do they relate to purpose? And second, how do they relate to stakeholders? As for the stakeholders, there are 4 stakeholders. 1. Students. 2. Teachers. 3. A person, a patient, or basically in general the entire healthcare system. And the 4th, regulatory bodies. So given that there are various perspectives from stakeholders and various purposes, various mixes of stakeholders, there is not a single set of criteria that can be applied equally to assess all the situations. You can have, because there's different stakeholders working in different fields with different purposes, there's not one, you can use one to actually make it equal for everyone in hopes that everyone can just fit into using that one criteria. So a different purpose may lead to different values for the criteria. Likewise, different stakeholders and different mixes of stakeholders may value the criteria differently. Moving on, the first characteristics of a good assessment is validity. So validity here can also be known as coherence. So why validity? And what is validity here actually means? Validity is actually like something that's like a body of evidence that supports or hangs together the use of assessment for a particular purpose. Let's say you're students. So students have a lot of tests and exams which is under validity, which is a property of scores or inference drawn from a test. Not actually the test itself, but actually like the result of the test. So like let's say students undergo all these tests, and that's not the only test that undergoes. Like each semester you have a test, and this helps in collecting a lot of data, because under validity isn't a matter, it's a matter of degree, and it requires ongoing collection of data to actually determine the result. Because like I said earlier, summative assessment is to establish on whether the students, I give the example students, on whether the students have learned enough. So with ongoing tests, and by the end of the course you have this final test, and this results, this score or inference will be the one that will be used to determine your competence, your level of understanding. So that's the first characteristics of a good assessment. That's all for me. I'll let my group members continue. Thank you.
Good evening to Dr. Sama and my fellow course mates. My name is Syahmin Afifah binti Junid, and I will be continuing the presentation by elaborating on the characteristics of a good assessment. So another characteristic of a good assessment, aside from validity, is reliability. Reliability is concerned with the consistency, stability, and dependability of the scores. So basically, it is the degree to which students' results are the same when they take the same test on different occasions, when different scorers score the same test, and when different but equivalent tests are taken at the same time or at different times. So reliability is a trait achieved through statistical analysis in a process called equating. Now, equating is one of the many functions performed by psychometricians. Psychometricians are people who are trained in the statistical measurement of knowledge, so they help to ensure that an assessment is reliable. In general, informal, classroom-based, teacher-created assessments don't directly engage with the concept of reliability, as these types of assessments don't require advanced statistical analysis, but they do informally engage with the concept. So when a student has to take a mock test, for example, the test should be about as difficult as the original test. Therefore, for informal assessments, your professional judgment is often called upon, whereas large-scale assessments, for large-scale assessments, reliability is tracked and demonstrated statistically. Reliability is influenced by factors within the student, so internal sources of error, such as luck, mood, and physical condition, as well as external factors such as the quality of the test, sampling of items, scoring errors, and test directions. So the direction of the error can either be positive or negative. There are 4 conditions that may affect the reliability of an assessment. Firstly, student-related reliability. Now, this is the most common learner-related issue in reliability that is caused by temporary illness, fatigue, a bad day, anxiety, and also other physical and psychological factors that may make an observed score deviate from one's true score. Next is rater reliability. So this is when human error, subjectivity, and bias may enter into the scoring process. Another factor is test administration reliability. Now, unreliability may also result from the conditions in which the test is administered. So, for example, students are required to listen to a recording during an oral comprehension test. But because of street noise outside the building, students sitting next to the windows can't hear the tape accurately. So this is a clear case of unreliability caused by the conditions of the test administration. Other sources of unreliability are such as the amount of light in different parts of the room, variations in temperature, and even the condition of desks and chairs. Last but not least is the test reliability. Sometimes the nature of the test itself can cause measurement errors. So, for example, if the test is too long, test takers may become fatigued by the time they reach the later items or the later questions and hastily respond incorrectly. So timed tests may discriminate against students who don't perform well on a test with a time limit. There are a number of assessment procedures that teachers can use to enhance reliability and reduce error. Firstly, there needs to be a sufficient number of tasks. The greater number of times a trait is assessed, the more reliable the inference about what a student knows and what they can do. This means that teachers shouldn't rely on a single assessment, but it doesn't mean that they should give as many assessments as possible. Assessments should continue until a consistent pattern of results is obtained, using many shorter assessments rather than fewer long assessments. Second, keep assessment procedures and scoring as objective as possible to avoid bias. So this means having a clear rubric for performance-based assessments. Third, do everything possible to eliminate the influence of extraneous sources of error. So this means interruption should be avoided, temperature and lighting should be appropriate, direction should be clear, and so forth. Finally, it is best to use different assessment methods since each method has unique sources of error, and students may be more adept with some methods and struggle with others. So this suggests that teachers should not rely solely on one method, such as giving all multiple choice questions or all essays. Okay, so another characteristic of a good assessment is practicality. Practicality in assessment means that the test should be easy to design, easy to administer, and easy to score. So no matter how valid or reliable a test is, it has to be practical to make. This means that it should be economical to deliver, so it shouldn't be excessively expensive. The layout should be easy to follow and understand. It should stay within appropriate time constraints. It should be relatively easy to administer, and its correct evaluation procedure should be specific and time efficient. So high-quality classroom assessments provide reliable, valid, and practical measures of student performance. Quality is enhanced when the assessments balance technical requirements with practical consequences. And as assessments becomes more important, the quality of these assessments becomes crucial. Therefore, teachers need to know what constitutes of a high-quality assessment and judge them against these criteria. The results will be enhanced professionalism, increased student learning, and more credible reports of student learning. So, I hope from the first part of our presentation, you are able to understand what are the characteristics of a good assessment. And yeah, that will be all from me from my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Syahmin. My name is Junid, metric number 145513. After looking at the characteristic of good assessments, now I am going to talk about one of the difficulties faced by inexperienced teachers in integrating assessment in teaching and learning. So, the first difficulty will be grading. Why is it difficult to grade? So now, why is it difficult for inexperienced teachers to grade their students? Grading is often perceived as one of a teacher's most difficult tasks. Although many teachers try to grade students as objective as possible, many students still feel that they get an unfair grading. Students might go and talk to teacher or complain about their grade. They will ask teacher like, why they get these marks, why this and why that. So inexperienced teacher will find it difficult to grade their students because the capability or ability of every student in the learning process differs. This means their strengths and weaknesses are all totally different. So this is why grading is so challenging, especially when we grade struggling learner. Who are struggling learner? For example, let's say English language learner. English language learner refers to learner whom English is not their primary language and they have very limited skills in reading, writing, speaking, and also listening. So if you find out that your students has difficulty following instructions, or they work longer and harder but they have little or no improvement, or the students struggle with basic reading, writing, or the spelling, or they have difficulty staying focused on the given task, or some of the students take longer time compared to other students to complete their works. So the example I given just now is some of the signs of struggling learner. So it is hard to grade students, especially struggling learner. So if you are an inexperienced teacher, you will find it very difficult. Now, let us move to solution. The first solution is grading based on improvement over past performance. So this means teachers grade their students based on the students' degree of improvement since the last reporting period. For example, as you can see here, Leo got A minus previously and now he gets an A, but Jane, she got C and now she gets A minus. So question now is, who have a better performance, who have better improvement? Jane has better improvement. So now some people might ask, hey, Leo gets A but Jane only A minus. Why is Jane better than Leo? This is because teacher grades student based on improvement over past performance. Leo show only little improvement from A minus to A, like just one gap, one level. But Jane, she has a drastic improvement. Her result is from a C to A minus. This is a very huge improvement since the maybe last time she get her result. And now let's look at another solution. So another solution would be grade assessments differently. The homework and assignments will complete as a group. So it will be given more weight. But the assessment, the major assessment like exam, complete individually by students in class will be given less weight. Let's say, for example, assignments or project or presentation, those group works will be given 60%, and exam complete individually, exam only 40%. So you can see the weighting, the weight given. The weighting group assignment is more heavily, and this could change students' report, students' result, their grade, maybe from a C or to A minus. So this is weighting assignment differently. And next, we move on to modifying grade scale. So modifying grade scale, it means teacher change the grading scale, so the percentage or the points required to achieve each grade is lower. So usually this is for struggling learners, struggling students. So look at the table, for example. As for normal students, grading may be based on just traditional percentage scale, where 90% to 100% is an A, 80% to 89% is a B, and so forth. But for struggling students, struggling learners, because of their maybe learning abilities, teacher will modify the scale, the percentage scale. So the grade the grade cutoff is like maybe 10% lower. So with that modified, an A would be 80% or greater. It means 80% to 100%. So as long as students get 80% and above, it is an A. And B would be 70% to 79% and so on. So this is obviously the grade has been modified. It has become lower. So this is all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Yanni. A very good morning to Dr. Sama and my fellow friends. My name is Hannah, and now I will continue on to talk about the second difficulty faced by inexperienced teachers in integrating assessment in teaching and learning, which is they did not achieve the learning objectives. So I will talk about what do inexperienced teachers overlook and effects of neglecting the learning objectives, and I will also provide a solution to this problem. So let's start with a little bit of humor. This is a meme I got from the internet, and it says that in class, the students are taught that 1 plus 1 equals to 2. And in the exams, the question is, John has 4 apples and gives 1 away. Calculate the mass of the sum. Which doesn't make sense. Jokes aside, there are some kind of reality into this joke. Okay, so now let's go to the problem. The first problem I realized is that the teachers, these inexperienced teachers, they will integrate assessment spontaneously. What do I mean by spontaneously? So according to my experience as a teacher, a lot of teachers, they will, how do they assess the students? They will firstly take exercise books or reference books, and they will flick through it, and they will look at the questions and think, I think I can test my students on this tomorrow. And then they will plan their lesson, and then they will take the materials directly from the book, and then they will modify it a little bit, and then they will just use it in the class. But the problem is, they do not relate the questions to their learning objectives. The reason why they choose the question is because the teacher thinks that she needs to test the students on this. But this is not how it works. Everything that the students learn and the teacher teach must be based on the learning objectives. The teachers, they focus more on what they assume their students should know instead of what the students want to know. And secondly is they did not specify on what is being assessed clearly. So for example, let's say using the case just now, the teacher just takes the questions related to, for example, tenses, and just ask the students to answer questions about tenses. But what part of tenses are you testing the students? There are a lot of aspects in this one topic of tenses. You can test the students on variety of things. Can test their speaking skills, reading skills, and how to identify, how to justify, and there are so many things to assess. But the teachers did not specify. And next is the teachers, these inexperienced teachers, they will misinterpret the meaning of higher order thinking skill questions, also known as HOTS questions. So what do I mean by misinterpret? Is that these teachers, they will have the assumption that, okay, HOTS questions is firstly tough questions. Secondly, is questions asking about your opinion. So you can see like most of the HOTS questions, they will start with, in your opinion, what is, so on and so forth. So this is not the definition of a HOTS question. And when they misinterpret the meaning of these HOTS questions, they will ask the students HOTS questions that the student doesn't even know how to answer. And lastly, the problem is they focus on the knowledge rather than skills. This focusing on knowledge will cause those inexperienced teachers to use a pen and paper method to assess the students. And rather than skills, what do I mean by they don't assess the skills? Because pen and paper is quite passive, right? They didn't assess the students' communication skills, their collaborative skills, problem-solving skills, their critical thinking skills. They don't they don't assess it and apply it in the students' daily life. And all this problem happens because the teachers did not align their assessment with the learning objectives. The teacher often neglect the learning objectives and they focus on what I want to teach the student, which is the problem faced by inexperienced teachers. And what is the effect of this? When the teacher does not design and integrate assessment based on the learning objectives, firstly, the students will struggle. The reason is because, take for example the HOTS questions, and if the teacher come up with a question that is a HOTS question that is so tough, the students, at first they are very confident with their ability, let's say in English, and suddenly there is a HOTS question bombarded to them that the students cannot even comprehend. They cannot even understand what the question wants of them. And this will cause a lot of anxiety in them, thinking, and they will kind of starting to self-doubt whether their abilities are truly there, and this will demotivate the students. They will feel like, learning English is so tough. I don't want to learn it anymore. And this is not a good thing for the students because we want to encourage the students to learn and not demotivate them. And next is also the teachers, they can't assess the students thoroughly. This is because there are many learning objectives. So if you didn't specify clearly which learning objectives are you assessing, you are just assessing it on a general level, a basic level. There is no in-depth assessment, so you cannot make judgments based on that assessment because you didn't thoroughly assess the students, and this will cause the assessment to be useless. The assessment serves no purpose because you are doing the assessment for the sake of doing it. You don't know the objective of doing it. What is the learning objective? So the solution to this is that teachers should align the assessment and learning methods to the learning outcome. Whenever the teacher think of assessment, they will have to think of the learning outcome, like what the teacher want the student to learn, and what the students are required to produce, and then the assessment must base on that. And the teachers, they should reflect and make sure that their questions are straight to the point. This is so that the students does not misinterpret the questions, and they won't think that the question is so hard when it is actually the teacher's fault for choosing the wrong questions to ask the students. So next is the teacher should identify the students' needs. The teachers should not think of what they want to teach. Instead they should think of what the students want to achieve by learning this subject. And next, the teacher should make a table of specification. This table of specification is so that those teachers won't be confused on what is the objectives. So it looks something like this. So this is like a very complete the table of specifications, and here there is like the content domain, and here is the learning objectives and the number of items and what the application analysis. All this is the Bloom's taxonomy. So this one, it gives a thorough assessment to the students so that the teacher can know the true capability of the students. So to summarize our whole presentation, so there are three characteristics of a good assessment, which is validity, reliability, and practicality. And the difficulties in integrating assessment for inexperienced teachers is that firstly is grading, and secondly is the teachers does not achieve the learning objectives. So we must put it in mind that the purpose of assessment is to know the students' capabilities to enhance the skill and knowledge of students. So this is all from our group, and I would like to thank all of you for attentively listening to our presentation, and we hope that you have a good day. Thank you.